Good morning, YouTubers. I'm gonna make a little video today. This is an old 55 Chrysler Hemi. Hard to find parts for. And a lot of the parts you have to make. And so what I'm gonna do right now is show you how I go about making a part. Might be some interesting for somebody that's interested in Hemis. They can make their own, but basically I'm going to make a prototype, get it all adjusted, and I'm going to make another one, and then I'm going to put it for sale on eBay, so you can see the procedure of that. Now what this is, there's an idler pulley here, and it's running across to an alternator. Now this alternator is I made a bracket for it, but because of the supercharger I can't put it on the other side. Ordinarily this would go down below. I just don't have any room on either side to put it below, so that's the only place I could put it. And I don't know if you can tell there, even with some hacking and wiring and things, we just don't have any room in there. You know, there's like 1/4 of an inch and it's almost hitting the valve cover here. So I really don't have a lot of adjustment on this alternator, not enough to really tighten it securely. And if I do get it tight, because of the way this thing is, I've got this is actually an early 1955 bracket. Now I pulled that off and I got a different idler pulley on it, but it's only being held on by one bolt. I don't know if you can tell right here, but this water outlet tube, it's got 2 bolts in it, and that bracket is actually only holding onto one bolt, and when you tighten it up real tight it pulls it. In fact, you can see it's loose there now, and you can see it's bending around. So I had 2 ideas. One is, of course, this little stick here is just to hold it, give it a solid base. One would be to put a bolt and a nut on there that would press against the water pump and actually let me move this thing in and out as an adjustment, and it would still let it rotate on that one bolt. The other solution would be to make a bracket that both bolts go into, and still and then relocate the pulley up here somewhere, and then I can tighten it up with the alternator over there. But like I said, I don't have a lot of an adjustment on there. So what I'm going to try to do, haven't really made up my mind if I could, it'd be easier to make a single bracket that bolts on there and holds that pulley at one spot. That little water pump adapter there for electric water pump is pretty thin, and if I go starting putting pressure on it with a bolt, there's a good chance I could crush or crack or bust that little manifold. Then I got a water leak, and that's not good either. I can't really tap into these heads because the water jacket's very thin. There's like maybe 1/8 of an inch in there, and if I tap it, I actually did that on the other side for something, but there's really no strength in that. 1/8 of an inch cast iron just rips right out. It needs to be up on a big boss like that water pump outlet. So anyway, that's what I'm going to try to do, make me a bracket that'll fit this and run a later, you know, a fairly new idler pulley that's not, you know, 100 years old and worn out, and give me some way of it adjusting that belt. Now, one of the first things I have to do is figure out how much room I got in here. I'm gonna put a bracket on it. So it looks like about 680 thousandths roughly, almost 3/4 of an inch. It's for the pipe, and it's a 1/2 inch pipe. So, and just looking at how much room I got about 850 thousandths maximum, and that'll still leave me room to put a bolt in it, and approximately center to center on these bolts about 1.8 inches. So that's the tolerances that I'm going to have to try to make a plate that'll fit around there and bolt on with both bolts. Alright, well, I got some angle iron here. That looks like it'll go on there pretty good. It'll be up about that high. And I've got enough room there to miss the pulley. I'm not exactly sure what I'd want to do with that. And it would be the same if I had it set in here like this. Actually, like that. That would fit in there, and looks like that might be the way to go, and then it would be fairly easy to make another bracket for that bolt. I'll have to think about this a while, whether I use a piece of angle iron or just regular steel on it. One of the things that I want to do is I want to make it look fairly attractive. I don't want to have a big old ugly chunk of iron on it. We'll see. I'll think about that some more. Try another idea. Alright, what I've done here is I just clamped this into a tool holder and put a milling bit here in the lathe. I've set it to approximately the middle of the angle iron there, and I'm just going to see if this is gonna be able to mill like I want it to. If I can cut a slot in that thing, then I'll mill it out to exactly the size it'll fit around that wire pump. But right now I'm just seeing if this angle iron is going to work. Well, I don't know how good this is going to be. I've got it set up here in the lathe. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me, or even really what you're going to see. It might be vibrations, might be too bad, but we're going to give it a try. Put a little oil on it. Hopefully this will cut through it without a lot of trouble. not working too well. So we'll try cutting off 52 thousandths at a time. Put it on automatic speed. Well, that seems to be working alright. Tighten up my gibs here to knock some of that chatter out. That's much better. That thing about an inch. Oh, I really got those gibs tight. Now loosening up a bit. There we go. Now I'll take it in a few more thousand. Try that. Pull it down pretty good. Looks like my cross piece screw here might be a little too loose too. I'll tighten these gibs. Next pass should be able to go all the way through, and you get to see something. Quite a bit of chatter, but it's working. Put it right around the middle. Here I can see my screw pulse holder was moving around there, but it looks like I'll be able to machine a pretty good sized hole in there. Now I'll go out there and measure it and see how much I do need. Well, pipe was 610 thousandths, and so I'm going to give it 680 thousandths, yeah, which is about twice of this. So I'll do a little calculating here, and I'll see how much I got to move it up. First I'm going to try to cut it with just feeding it in like this real slow. 150 thousandths is quite a bit for this little lathe, but I think if I go slow I'll be alright. Taking is just not very good. A little oil might help. I don't want to give up on that. I'm just going to take off a few thousandths like I did before and use it on auto speed. Try to run more fast here. Let's see if it'll take it now or the whole thing. Yeah. Alright, looks like I just need to take off about half. That's 1/4 inch metal, so that's a pretty big cut. Now I'll adjust it for the other side. I'll have to raise it up some. What I did on that one, I just adjust it for about half the bit. This is not a critical dimension. I'll take off about 20 thousandths here. Take off about another 40. Oil helps. Should be able to take off what's left there without a lot of trouble. Alright, get this, wrong one, this tool post out of here. And we got a pretty decent hole whacked out. Now I'm just going to go out there and see if it'll fit the motor, see how close we are with this thing. Well, the hole is good enough, but I got this problem. This actually bolts a little too big, but it'll be okay for that side. This is the bolt that it actually takes. But if you can see here, I centered in that hole from the overall size of the angle iron, and I should have centered it from the inside. So there's really no way I can put a bolt on this side. I just don't have enough room, and even if I did, I couldn't turn it. So that means that have to do a little rethinking, either move this hole over here. I mean, obviously have to move the hole over there, cut another piece. But I think if I get a hole big enough for this, I got to move it with that bolt, and I just don't think that this angle iron is going to be big enough to put 2 bolts in it. So this may have been just kind of a waste of time. I'll do some measuring, but I don't think it's going to work. Well, here's center line. The center line, that's about 800 thousandths or 1.8 inches. That's a 2-inch piece, so that's center line to center line. So it's pretty obvious that this piece of angle iron would never work in the first place. So I have to think of something else now. Well, after about an hour of fooling around with it, I determined that angle iron wouldn't work. So what I did was make a bracket here and tighten it up and put it in here, and I'm just going to weld this together. That makes it a pretty clean installation, and then I'll just adjust it on the alternator side. I need to make a whole nother bracket, but I'm going to have to take it off and paint it. But that's down the road. For now, I'm just going to weld it in and get rid of that block of wood, see what it looks like. Well, I made about 3-4 passes of downhill welding there, and that should be plenty strong. I'll wire brush it and we'll have another look at it. Yeah, it turned out just fine. The wood dropped right out. It was already trashed. And my next thing here is, I don't like that big old ugly bolt, so I'm going to pull that all apart and go to the lathe and make me a good bolt for this, and clean up that whole look there. The first part of sorting this mess out is to replace this. This is the end of a hose fitting something. I just cut it off. It doesn't really fit the bolt very well, and it needs to be quite a bit bigger, of course, to really press on that bearing. Over here is another, some kind of a spacer I had, I figured out. Of course, the bolt's the wrong size, so that'll be the first one. Just turn me a nice brass thing about that big, maybe decorate it a little. That'll help it look better. I have a nice piece of brass here I was making lathe bushings out of. And it's the right size approximately. So I'll just have to measure that thing down there and cut it the same size and drill a hole in it that'll fit that shaft. Alright, well, the shaft's about 4.5, or the hole's about 4.5, and this the shaft here on this hole, we're trying to do this with one hand, is 4.95, so that's 1/2 inch. And here I'm about 40 thousandths under. So probably what I'm going to try to do, I've got a the 1/2 inch hone that I've been using. That's a lot to try to take out with a hone. It's 40 thousandths. But soft brass, it's just going right in there. So that should be just maybe 3 thousandths under 1/2 inch. So that'll make a nice fit on the shaft. The shaft is actually just a bolt. I haven't decided whether to turn one or not. But you can see the finish that hone makes. Yeah, anyway, that's a extremely nice mirror-like finish on the hone. Much better than the drill bit. Of course, brass turns out nice anyway. But there's the inside of that, and it's the right length. It should work as it is. Nope, I guess those few thousandths made a difference. They just won't go in there. So I thought maybe that hone I'd make it perfect size, but looks like I'm still going to have to take a few thousand out. I'll just use that with a boring bar. And I set it up for a 4,000ths pass. I kind of made that. That's some little cheap Japanese Chinese boring bars. I made a collar to mount into that quick change. But it looks like it's working really good with brass. Works okay on steel. Took me quite a while to get it set up to where it would bore right. So that's it. Back it out. Nowhere near as nice as the home. Let's see if it fits now. Nope. Still won't go in. So I'm just gonna run this up here again, and I'll take another take 3,000ths this time, which gives it 6,000ths overall. And I think that will definitely be plenty this time. It doesn't have to fit real tight, but it does have to slip over the shaft. Well, that fit perfectly well. Now I had this much spacer on the front, so the brass part spaced it away from the that shine really messes up. The brass part spaced it away from the motor, which that has to stay, but there's no reason to have this big spacer in here other than I had that long bolt, and I didn't have any short ones, so either I'm going to try to rethread that bolt and cut it off, or maybe find another shorter bolt. But anyway, I'll see what I can do on that. Well, that's what I have here. The nut fits perfect in the bearing without a washer or anything. And the only problem is I just need to have that. It's got like an 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, the most bracket that I just welded up. I don't think I have a thread or a die that size, and it's kind of a pain to try to go back here and set up these gears to the thread. So I'm going to look around first and see what I got. If I've got a 7/16 fine thread die, that'd be the way to go, the easiest way. Well, there's my freshly modified and most awesome bracket. It didn't tighten it up any, the belt's still loose, but well, don't look too bad. What I need to do is take it off and make another one. But like I said, I was making a prototype. I was first thinking I don't think I could make another one. But now that I'm looking at it, basically it's just a Y-shaped piece of metal with reinforcement on one edge and a bend in it. And instead of putting a single hole down there in the bottom, I could pretty easily put a slotted hole so you could move that pulley around. This one's very specific because it's only got like a 1/16 of an inch down there that the fan belt clears the water pump hose, and it's got to idle around all of that electric water pump, and then of course the alternator and stuff over there is real tight. But so I can probably, now that I've got the right spacing and holes and stuff, I can probably take it off of there and make another one. But that'd be a project for another day. For right now, I'm calling that a good deal. Done project. I'll just go ahead and tighten up that alternator, and I'll be finished with this.